Ever get like totally weirded out by
Yeah.
something like a sound or a texture? Something that like most people, they don't even notice.
Hmm.
Well, today we're really diving into one of those things, something that's actually surprisingly common in autism, but nobody really talks about it.
Hmm.
Velcro phobia.
Yeah.
And we're going deep on this one with
Yeah.
this article from Cheap ABA Autism and the Fear of Velcro. Right.
Oh, right.
And it's fascinating stuff. It's not just about, finding that ripping sound annoying. It's way deeper than that.
Yeah, it really is. What I find so interesting about Velcro phobia is how much it shows us about, how many different ways people with autism experience sensory input.
Yeah.
What might be a totally normal sensation for one person can be really intense, even painful for someone else.
Totally. Like imagine you've got a kid, right? And they're super into these light up shoes.
Yeah, yeah.
They love these shoes.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they can't even stand to look at them.
Yeah.
And it turns out the straps were Velcro.
Yeah.
And like somewhere along the line, it went from cool shoes to like this thing that makes them super anxious.
Yeah.
And, I think that's a light bulb moment for a lot of parents.
Oh, absolutely. And that's just one example, really, of how much this phobia can affect people's lives. We're talking, avoiding certain clothes, bags, even like classrooms, therapy spaces, just because of Velcro. It can be really limiting.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, but why? Like, what's actually happening in the brain that makes Velcro so, like, distressing for some people?
Right. So think about all those sensory receptors we have in our skin, right?
Okay.
Now, for someone with autism, those sensations like the scratchiness of Velcro, the way it kind of catches on things, those can all be magnified, almost like a constant annoying buzz they can't turn off.
It's like turning up the volume on a sensation that's already kind of annoying, even for those of us without, you know, those sensitivities.
Exactly. And it's not just the tactile stuff either. We can't forget the visual aspect of it.
Yeah.
Some people with autism, their brains process visual information differently, right?
Right.
So things like the pattern of Velcro, the way it reflects light, even just the texture visually, it can be overwhelming or distorted.
Yeah.
And again, that can lead to anxiety or even fear.
It's like, you know how some patterns, if you stare at them too long, they kind of seem to vibrate
Yeah.
or like move?
Yeah.
Imagine that, but like amplified for someone with those visual processing differences.
Right.
That's got to be incredibly unsettling.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of all that, you add in associative learning.
Okay.
So let's say a child has one bad experience with Velcro, like we talked about with the shoes, or maybe they got scratched by a Velcro strap.
Yeah.
Their brain can actually create this like super strong link between Velcro and that negative feeling, and boom, full-blown phobia.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot sometimes.
Wow. Yeah. It's like Pavlov's dogs, but with sensory overload instead of,
Yeah.
a dinner bell. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about like why some people with autism experience this phobia,
Right.
and it's way more than just, being a little picky.
Mm-hmm.
So what can you actually do about it? Especially, if you're a parent or a teacher or a therapist, someone who's like trying to support someone with this phobia.
Right. That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Luckily, there's a lot we can do to help.
Okay, good.
The Cheap ABA article, it lists some really practical strategies, and I think the main takeaway is that there's not like a one solution that works for everyone.
Right. Everyone's different. So
Yeah, exactly. But there are definitely some common themes. Like a good place to start is always sensory accommodations, right?
okay, so like what does that actually look like?
So maybe swapping out clothes and bags that have Velcro with ones that have like buttons, zippers, they're those magnetic snaps now. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah. Like those clothing brands that are specifically designed for people with sensory sensitivities.
Right, exactly. Or you can even just get creative and do like DIY solutions too.
Right. Yeah.
Another big one is creating sensory-friendly spaces. So that might be like in a classroom, having a quiet corner, maybe with some soft lighting, not too much visual stuff going on. Noise-canceling headphones too, those are great.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
At home, weighted blankets, calming sensory toys, that kind of thing.
It's about like being proactive,
Yeah.
right? And thinking about those needs.
Yeah.
And creating an environment that's kind of calming and safe.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's about setting everyone up for success, really.
Right.
But alongside those like environmental things, therapy can be super helpful.
Okay.
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, that one's really good for phobias in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that. How would it work for like Velcro phobia?
Well, so it's about helping someone understand their own like fear response to Velcro and
Okay.
then teaching them ways to kind of manage that anxiety when they see it or hear it. So maybe that looks like starting with just like looking at pictures of Velcro. Right?
Okay.
And then maybe being in the same room as something that has Velcro on it.
Mhm.
And then, eventually working up to actually being able to touch it.
It's like exposure therapy, but like baby steps.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, baby steps for your brain, essentially.
That's
It's
how.
a gradual process, desensitization paired with like coping skills,
Right, right.
like deep breathing, mindfulness, that sort of thing. And it's important to remember we're not talking about like forcing someone to just confront their fear all at once. It's about giving them the tools to kind of manage it at their own pace.
Okay, that makes sense. And what about like occupational therapy? Could that be helpful here too?
Yeah. Absolutely. Occupational therapists, they're amazing at helping people figure out how to like navigate daily life with sensory challenges.
Yeah.
So they might introduce things like weighted vests, compression garments
Mhm.
to help regulate sensory input, or work with individuals on very specific skills like getting dressed, managing transitions, things like that, which, those can be tough when Velcro is involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
So it's
it,
not
yeah.
just about like avoiding the trigger. It's about giving people the tools to like cope with it, which I mean, you're bound to come across Velcro.
Exactly, exactly. It's about empowerment, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that actually leads us to, another important point the article makes, which is the importance of support groups.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because even with like all the strategies and stuff, sometimes you just need other people who really get it.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to share experiences, get support, celebrate victories, it makes all the difference. And honestly, those support groups, they're just incredible resources for practical advice and like, just emotional support.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's like having people who get it, who've been there. That's so important.
It makes all the difference. And honestly, that's why, raising awareness about this stuff is so important too.
Yeah.
Not just for people who have autism, but like everyone.
Yeah, totally. So how do we do that? How do we get people talking about this more? I think education is a huge part of it. Like the
Okay.
more we talk about sensory sensitivities like Velcro phobia, the more it becomes just a normal part of the conversation.
Yeah,
And that helps challenge those misconceptions that are out there.
totally.
Think about it. If a kid knows that their teacher understands why Velcro bothers them, they're going to feel way more comfortable speaking up about it, right?
Right, exactly. It's about creating an environment where people, especially kids, they feel safe,
Hmm.
like asking for what they need.
Exactly. And that goes for like all areas of life, not just
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
what if clothing companies just like routinely offered Velcro free options? Or what if movie theaters had like sensory friendly screenings,
Yeah.
with softer sounds and lights and stuff?
Yeah, it's about like thinking beyond the obvious, right? Like it's not about like banning Velcro. That wouldn't even be realistic.
Right.
But like, giving people options, being mindful of those sensory needs.
Right. Even just like a heads up can go a long way. Like
Okay.
if a school is having an event, they could send a note to the parents, hey, there's going to be like loud music or there might be flashing lights.
Oh, yeah.
So families can be prepared, right?
Yeah.
It's just about like being considerate and creating a world that works for everyone.
Absolutely. Even just these small changes can make such a big difference. This deep dive has been so interesting. I mean, I knew a little bit about sensory sensitivities before, but this has been really eye-opening.
Yeah, it really makes you think, right?
Yeah.
About all the stuff that, most of us just take for granted.
Totally. Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking about all of this. It's been so great having you.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And for our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you something to think about. Maybe it's inspired you to, learn a little bit more about this stuff or just like see the world from a different perspective.
Right, exactly.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.